What's up, everybody? It's your boy Caesar. So today we have Ultimate Dancouga from CCS Toys. Now I check my comments quite regularly, and in comments in the other videos that I've been doing, people have been asking me, when are you gonna do this one? When are you gonna do this one? Well, this time is now. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go. So now we're gonna take a look and see what we got inside here. Now you guys know CCS Toys, their boxes and stuff tend to be quite big, so I'm gonna have to shoot this from the top down. But first off, just take a look at this digital artwork. That looks amazing. Wow, that's great wallpaper. It looks amazing, I think. So I always have liked CCS's artwork. It just looks amazing to me. And then of course, you know, we get the hand-drawn of Ultimate Dancouga there. That looks spectacular. That might be one of the best ones they've done yet. And then we have a plethora of hands here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like possibly 5 sets of hands there. You've got the Ultimate Dancouga CCS stand there. It looks like you got the little dragon part there. So you've got those. Anything on the back side? Looks like, yep, you've got a bunch of different metal parts here. That's probably for the chest plate there. Comes with a set of 18 batteries. So see guys, that's how you do it. I shouldn't have to go, especially if I'm spending this much, I should not have to go and pay for more batteries. This comes with 18. Do better, other companies. Okay, and then we've got the manual. So we're pretty used to seeing that from CCS. So it looks pretty good there. Like that front cover art there, looks amazing. And then it looks like we've got some other parts here. This looks like parts for the backpack there, the front and back skirts. Looks like you've got the head there for Dancouga, and you got the tip blade for the Dancou Shinken, the upgraded version. So you've got that. So it looks pretty good there. And then of course we've got Dancouga himself. Looks like the front chest plate there. You've got the parts for the arm plates there. Looks like that might be part of the feet there. You've got Dancouga here himself. Let's pull this off and see what it looks like. All right, so this looks really good. Their presentation, CCS's presentation has always been really good. I would say that the only one that beats it is probably Blitzway, because Blitzway tends to be very premium, but for the price, I've always liked CCS ever since I did that original Gunbuster review. So I've always been a fan of theirs. So let's go ahead and take this off here. And this is what you'll get. So Dancouga, oh yeah, he's heavy too. All right, so that looks amazing. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look at the manual next. So let's take a look at this manual here. So Ultimate Dancouga. You know, when I first saw the prototypes for this, I didn't like it all that much. We didn't like it all that much. Now, of course, you've got your parts count here. Now with CCS Toys, we're gonna get a ton of parts, so I'm not gonna lollygag during the manual section because we got so much to get through. And then this is telling you where to put the batteries, the 18 batteries that you get. So it looks like it's taking CR927 batteries. Yep, CR927 or LR44 and LR754. So it looks like it takes a bunch of different ones. So you've got that, you've got the normal accordion style there. So looks really, really good there as far as the manual. So we got a ton of stuff there. You got stuff on the back as well as far as how to do the Dancou Shinken and all of the other stuff that it has. There's a lot here, so I'm not gonna waste a ton of time on the manual, but really good artwork there and artwork for the front. So it looks amazing there. So that's what we've got for the manual. So now we're gonna take a look at Dancouga himself. Wow. Goodness gracious. Are you guys looking at this? This thing is amazing. Look at all of this detail. Now, what I will say is that putting on most of the parts are not difficult. The outside armor parts here and here are pretty easy. This one, definitely make sure you follow the instructions on the middle part here with the dragon and everything. So that looks amazing. I would say the hardest parts to put on really were the shoulders up here. And I still see a lot of the original Dancouga in here, but the amount of detail in here, wow. CCS. I knew I liked you for a reason. Goodness gracious. Now it doesn't like the tracks move or anything, but wow. Man, now, first thing I will say also is that he is heavy. This might be heavier than Gunbuster. I'm pretty sure that it is. This might be the heaviest figure that I got. Because really, you do have to hold this thing with one hand, especially once you put all of his armor on and stuff. This just, whew, this thing looks amazing. I would say in order to put on all of the parts and stuff, it didn't take that long. Look at those hands. Wow, look at those fingers, man. That is crazy. Yeah, and there still is enough of the original Dancouga. I can see it now. I remember when I first saw the prototype for this. Now, this one, the CCS one and the Good Smile one, I want to say was announced roughly at the same time. I could be mistaken about that because it was about a year and a half ago. And I'm surprised that CCS beat Good Smile to this because the Good Smile one still has not come out yet. So, oh man, that looks amazing. Look at all this detail, the gold here with the silver blades. It is sharp as well. You kind of know that CCS ones, they do not fall back as far as the actual design. So if it's sharp in the design, it will be sharp here. So yeah, you definitely don't want to have a kid mess with this, but wow. Goodness gracious. Okay, I'm gushing over this. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a look at his accessories, so we'll do that next. So let's take a look at Ultimate Dancouga's accessories. So first up, you get all of the batteries. So the batteries, they have 3 different types. I kind of went over that before in the manual, but you do get 19, not 18, like I said then. And I already put one in his head, that's why one is missing, but you do get those. So this is cool. This is one thing that CCS has always done, is they make sure that their figures come with the batteries instead of you having to go out and buy them, like let's say Sentinel. So that's what you got for the batteries. And then next you have the Dancou Shinken. So this is pretty much its regular form. There is another form and we'll be going over that in the review, but this is a very nice sword. I've always liked Dancouga's sword for some reason. Just, I don't know, the 3-dimensional style, because usually there's only 2 with most swords that you see as far as the hilt is concerned, but you do have 4 here. So I've always thought that this made this blade very unique. And then you've got almost like a blue jewel here in the bottom. So that looks amazing. So I like this Dancou Shinken. And then you get the hilts for the Dancou Shinken. These are the hilts that go in his side skirts. But the thing about this is that these do have magnets in them. So you can use these to turn on all the lights, and we'll kind of get to the lighting section with Dancouga here in a little bit. But you do get 2 of those, and that's one for both side skirts there. Then next you get 2 different faceplates for Dancouga. He has the normal faceplate on there now. You have the angry face here on the left there, and then you have the armored one on the right. So this looks cool. Also, we'll go over how you slide these on, but these are magnetic as well. So these have magnets in them and they'll just go slide up in there. So I do like the fact that CCS is doing the magnet stuff. That makes it a lot easier as far as just pulling them in and out. So that's what you have for the faceplates. And then with this set, you get 6 different types of hands. So he's got the articulated hands on him. We'll go over those a little bit later. But first you kind of have like this 2-handed sword pose. So this is the hands for the 2-handed sword. So that's interesting how they did that. So you don't have to try to do it with one hand or the other. They have them stuck together. So I do like that. Then you get the open claw hands. So these are kind of sharp on the tips here, but they do look very, very menacing and very, very good. So you get a set of 2 for those. Then you get 2 semi-open hands. These look like this is probably for the Dancou Shinken as well. So you do get 2 of these. So these look really nicely detailed. They're plastic, they don't feel like metal, they feel like plastic, but they do have a metallic coat on them for sure. And then you get a set of, I would call these a trigger finger hands, but he does not have like a pistol or a beam rifle or anything. Dancouga doesn't really have that, but we'll get into the backpack here a little bit and you'll kind of see where that goes. But you have that set there. And then you only get 1 set of these hands. I call these like the reaching out hands, but it also is the sharp or like the nail style here for Ultimate Dancouga. So you only get 1 set of these though, and this is his right hand. So you do get 1 set of those. And then you get the stand for Ultimate Dancouga. So of course it's got the lettering for Dancouga here in Japanese with Ultimate Dancouga here at the bottom. And it looks like that's probably the Ultimate Dancouga kanji there. So I will say that with this one, you'll definitely want to be careful handling this, because with the sheen on here, or like this gloss finish, this will be a fingerprint magnet. I can already see my fingerprints on here, and you're probably going to need a microfiber cleaning cloth. This one also comes with 2 rods, as we're used to seeing with CCS, so nothing too spectacular there, but that's what you have for the stand. And then lastly, I wanted to take a look at the backpack by itself. This looks amazing. This also looks like an upgraded version of the Dancouga that we got in God Bless the Machine Dancouga. It had kind of like this X pattern as well. It just wasn't as detailed, and we'll kind of go through that here a little bit later. But first things, as far as weapons and stuff, he has this part here, and this is the Dancou Ho, which is, this will go over his head there, and then it'll fire these weapons here. These do light up. We'll kind of go over the lighting gimmick here in a little bit. We're used to seeing this one with the original Dancouga, so you do have that there. You also have these 2 guns right here at the bottom here. So you do have those, so you can rotate those around like that. So that's how that will stay. But I will say that this looks amazing. And then you have these 2 bottom parts here. These will come apart and form the Dancou Shinken, which is Ultimate Dancouga's like really big sword. So it's even bigger than the Dancou Ken. So these 2 will break apart and then form that. So this looks really, really good. Wow, CCS has done very well here. You kind of got like these claws here. They do open up there a little bit. So you do have that there. And then those are the parts that will form the Dancou Shinken. So you've got that. So, but other than that, now also, I must mention that apparently on some people's, for the first 2 fins up here, that some people were having a problem where the hole was not big enough to put those in. That is not a problem with mine. I know CCS did release a statement about that, saying that they will try to fix that, but that was not a problem on mine. So definitely, if you do buy this, make sure that you check that out to make sure that those holes fit for that. But for mine, that was not an issue. So this looks amazing. Wow. So anyways, so that's what we have for accessories. Really, really good showing for CCS as far as accessories. I don't think I could have asked for much more. But what we'll do now is, before we put Ultimate Dancouga's backpack and stuff on, we're gonna take a look at his articulation. I'll be interested to see what he has, as with bulky suits like this, they can be quite limited as far as articulation. So we'll take a look at articulation next. So let's take a look at Ultimate Dancouga's articulation. So for his head, he can look up, way up. So that's really good there. He can look down, way down. He's got side to side. Can he spin it 360? Let's see. Let's move this out of the way. I would say it's gonna be hard, but you can get it all the way over. So you can do 360. It's a little difficult, but you can do it. These parts do move as well, so you can move those around as well here. But I would say that just be careful with the ball joints for those tusks, because the ball joint really is not die cast. It looks die cast, but it's plastic, and I have seen people break those. So just be careful with those, but those will give you some give, and you can lift this up and down if you take the entire piece off. But that's what you got for the head. For the arm, you can lift this up, and you can lift that up a little bit more than shoulder length, but that's about it there. So that's really good. This will move in and out just so you can see where the shoulder is here. So these pieces will move. Could you do 360? I would say, let's try. Now, your hard part is gonna be trying to get this arm out of the way of this big plate here, but if you can get it out of the way, you can spin it 360. So that is good there. For the shoulder, you can move this up and down, so that will give you some leeway. You don't have a flap here, okay? So that is one solid piece, but you can move that up and down. So that's what you got for the shoulder there. For the bicep, can you spin this 360? The answer is yes, but you're gonna run into a problem. You have all of this piece in here trying to hit this, so that's not going to work very well. But I would say that you could get at least 180 on it, you would just have to try to move all of that out the way. And I don't know if that's gonna be worth it, and I probably wouldn't risk it, but it does look like you will be able to spin that 360, but I would say officially, you can do it at least 180 for the bicep. For the elbow, let's see if we can raise that up. So it looks like you can get a decent elbow there. So you do have a hinge here. So it does look pretty good, but you have a lot of bulk here. So you got a lot of moving pieces here, but I wouldn't say that it's bad. So I would say that you have a hinge here, and even though you can only get the elbow about that high, this will move up. So you can move the forearm up this way. So that kind of cheats that. And then you can see this moving mechanism here. So when you move, put it down, that goes down, and then look at how that moves there. So that's very interesting right there for the back of the bicep. So that is cool. So your elbow bend, not the best that we've seen, but it's definitely not bad. For the forearm, you can spin this. I would say that you probably could get this 360, but you're gonna run into the same problem that you ran into with the bicep, to where you're not really gonna be able to get this big old bulk here underneath this front plate. It's just, I don't see it happening. So you can do it. Let's see, matter of fact, let's see if we can take this off here. There we go. So let's take that off there, and then you can probably see it a little bit better. So you can spin that 360 there with the part off, but with it on, you're definitely not gonna be able to get it. So that's what you have for the forearm. Ultimate Dancouga does have a gimmick for this gauntlet on his forearm. So what you would wanna do is raise this, and then you can pull these out, and that will be your claws that you can use. So look how long that is. That looks pretty cool there, but you can do that. So that's kind of the gimmick that he has for his gauntlet there. For the wrist, you can move that in and out, down and up. So it does look like you will get a good range of motion for the wrist. And then for the hands, these are the articulated hands. So as you can see, and let's try to open these up here, those are very good hands. Not the repulsor hands that we're used to seeing with CCS. So I'm glad that they've kind of gone away from the repulsor hands, but you have a double hinge here on the thumb there. So that is really good there. Same on the fingers, you got a hinge here and you got a hinge here. So I think that that looks amazing. You can spread those out. I don't think, it looks like they're locked in there pretty good, so I don't think you'll have to worry about those coming out, but that's what you have for the hands. For the front chest plate, we kind of went over that a little bit earlier, but you can move these. So this will, the gold ones don't move as much, but this one, the silver one back here will move, and then this one back here will move. So you do have some range of motion for that. This guy is pretty thick and he's pretty wide, so you do have that. So it does look pretty good. That's actually how you put it on there, how you have that. So that's what you have for the chest piece. And then for the midsection, let's see what we've got. So you do have some side to side. So that looks really good there. So I do like that. Do you have any ab articulation? Looks like you do. So it will go down, it will go up. Not the greatest that we've seen, but definitely not bad, especially considering how bulky this guy is. Can he spin 360? Let's see. It looks like he can. So that is unexpected. I wasn't sure if he was gonna be able to do that, but yep, he can spin 360. Then for the waist, of course, the little dragon head on the top, you can move that up. So that will go all the way up. You can go down like that. I don't know, it doesn't really have any side to side, but you do have up and down. So that's good. For the front skirt, you can move these up. You can actually move the dragon head up and then move those up just like that. So you do have that. You do have a little bit of side to side, but I probably wouldn't chance that all that much. For the side skirt, you can move that up and down. You can move that front and back. So you do have that. It also has a gimmick. When you open this part, the hilt for the Dancou Shinken, that is on a spring in here, and you do have that for both sides. So that's pretty cool. That's not really necessary for me personally, but I do like the fact that you can do that. So, and I was a little worried that this was gonna go shooting out somewhere, but it looks like mine does not really do that. So, but that's what you have for the side skirt. For the back skirt, you can raise those up a little bit and then down. You can raise those in and out. So you can kind of go all the way out like that. So that's really good there. So you do have that for the back skirt. For the upper thigh, let's go ahead and get all this stuff out of the way. Can you spin this 360? you can. Now this is all die cast in here. This is the bottom piece for the base there. That's getting a little loose. You just kind of have to maneuver it. I don't know if I would chance 360, but you could definitely get at least 270. So that's actually really good. I just don't want to have that scratched up there because I can see how that's kind of digging into the side there. But I guess technically with enough care, yes, you can get 360 for the thigh. Let's take a look at the knee. So let's go ahead and raise the leg up like that. So I would say, ooh, that's maybe about 120, 125 or so. And then let's bend the knee. Of course, this guy is pretty bulky, but oh wow. Oh, I'm shocked by that. Let's turn that around so you can see that V there. That's a lot sharper than I thought it was going to be. But it does look really good. I'm quite surprised. So that's what you have for the knee. And then for the feet, you do have this part here that can move up and down. You can move that up slightly, but you have a lot of die cast in here. So I wouldn't try to push it because you definitely don't want to scratch this here, but it will go up. You do get a slight down, not too shabby there. You do get side to side. You do get a little bit of a tilt there as well. So I would say that that is pretty good for the feet. So that's what we have for articulation for this Ultimate Dancouga. Overall, I'm quite impressed, especially considering how bulky he is, how much weight he's carrying. He has die cast everywhere in this figure. So he can do quite a bit considering how thick he is and the amount of stuff that he's doing. I think that the gimmick for the gauntlet is really good. There's a lot of good things here. The spring for the side skirt there, I think is really good. There's not much to dislike here. So I think considering how big and heavy he is, the fact that you get this amount of articulation out of him, I am very, very surprised and impressed. So now what we'll do is we'll take a look at Ultimate Dancouga's lighting. So here we have Ultimate Dancouga with the backpack on. We are going to go through his lighting. So what I'm gonna do is hit the lights and we're gonna turn on his lights one by one. Like I said earlier, it's this little magnetic piece here. There's a magnet here and those will turn the lights on. So he's got them pretty much everywhere as you'll see. So let's do that. So now that we have the majority of our lights off, I just have the back lights on. We're gonna do this one by one. So let's start. So first off, there and there. And then I think it goes up here. There's certain points on it that you have to hit. Okay. There's one, there's the other. Now the feet ones I've seen to be the most tricky. They don't really come on all that well. So you really gotta hit it right. Let's see. There we go. Just like that. And then we have the two at the top. I almost forgot. 1 and 2. So as you can see, that's what Ultimate Dancouga looks like with all of his lights on. Let me go ahead and pull this cannon up so you can see it. And so you can see that kind of working there. There we go. Just like that. So as you can see, he is all lit up. Some people have had some lights that will not flare. I did not have that problem. You just have to make sure that they're put in correctly. But the thing about magnetic ones is since there's not really an off switch, I hope that these don't drain the batteries super duper fast. But I think overall, I think that this looks amazing. To my knowledge, it does not pulsate or anything like that. It just has them on, but I think that that is a really awesome sight there. And then of course, if you want to turn them off, you can just have to find the right point. Like I said, the feet ones are kind of the worst ones because that magnet, to where that magnet is kind of hard to get off of there. Let's see. There we go. And then here and here. So, and that's the thing about these kind of magnet ones. There we go. And that there. And that there. And I think it was over here. So in the instructions, it does show you. Let's go ahead and turn the lights back on here. So there you have it. Dancouga with all of his lights on. I thought that it looked really, really well. You are gonna have to use this and you're gonna have to hit specific parts. It does go over that in the manual as far as where you have to hit it. I would say most of them work relatively well. I would just say that the feet ones, this magnet is kind of hard to reach. So that's the only ones that I really ever had problems with, but I think overall, I think that it's done really, really well. Hopefully these will hold up over time and that those batteries don't drain super fast. The only other figure that I know that had like a magnetic on and off switch was the bootleg Optimus Prime that I did last year. That's the only one that had one, and I know that the batteries in that one drained super duper fast because they had a magnetic one just like this. But hopefully that won't be the case here, but I think overall that I think that this has been done really, really well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over the Dancou Shinken, which is his big sword. So we'll do that next. So now I'm gonna take you through how to form the Dancou Shinken, which is his really big sword. So what we're gonna do is bring out the Dancou Ken here. So you've got this here, that way. And what you'll have to do is you're gonna have to take off the two back pieces here and here. So those will just come out. Let's pull that off, pull that off. All right, so we pulled that off. And let's go ahead and put Ultimate Dancouga to the side here. So we can have him over that way. And then what you're gonna do for these parts, it's actually quite simple. You have this piece in here, you're gonna pull this out, all right? Then you're gonna take this piece here, and you're gonna take it and move this front piece forward or make the back piece go back that way. So you do that, then you take this piece, and that goes down here like this. Now this will snap in there and it can be kind of a pain to get out. So I'm gonna leave it semi in there so it won't take me that long to get it out. But that's how you form the one side of the blade, and then you do the same with the other side. So you'll just take this, pull this out, take that, move that back like that. Take this, that goes in this way. And then we'll bring out the Dancou Ken here. And then this will go up on the side. You're gonna take the front part here, extend that part. And then this piece here is gonna go into the side here. So you're gonna take that, put that in there, just like that. And we'll take this. There's also a magnet in there, so it does like to come together like that. And that is the Dancou Shinken. So as you can see, it definitely is bigger, but it's an interesting design because normally you would just have a bigger sword instead of it kind of going in like this. But it is, I do like it, and it just makes the tip extremely big. So you know how I'm always talking about that optical illusion, you can definitely see the difference there. So that's what you have for the Dancou Shinken. And then of course, to put it on, what you'll want is you're gonna have to pull this jewel off at the bottom, and we'll go ahead and put his other hand in here like this. All right, and then put the jewel back on. And then we'll bring out Ultimate Dancouga here. Let's take off this other hand that he's got. Pull that in, pull that out. Well, there we go. All right, looks like I've got it on there then. All right, and then, so you can kind of have it out. Of course, he is quite heavy, but it looks like he holds the sword quite well. So that's what you have for the Dancou Shinken. So let's go down so you can take a look at that. So pretty long, but he's got enough die cast in there that he can hold this with relative ease. So I do like that, because you're gonna have, for a sword that's that big, you're definitely going to want to have really strong joints. And it looks like they've got enough die cast in here that it's not gonna be a problem. So that's what you have for the Dancou Shinken. So now we're gonna do some size comparisons for Ultimate Dancouga so you guys can kind of get a gist for how big he is. Now, if I bring out my measuring tape here, I would say by eyeing it, if you're talking about from foot to the top of the head, I'm saying about 10 3/8 to 10 1/2. So it's roughly between the two. So that's from foot to head. And then if you're talking about to the top of the backpack, you're looking at about 14 1/8 to the top of the backpack there. So he is a decent size. One thing that I've always liked about CCS is they're not too big, but they're not too small either. So for size comparisons, the first one I'm gonna bring out is Mazinger Zero. So as you can see, he definitely is taller than him by a good margin there. The backpacks are roughly about the same. So that's what they look like together. So Ultimate Dancouga is definitely bigger than Mazinger Zero. And then next, I'm gonna put him next to the CCS Gunbuster. If I can get him to stand, there we go. So as you can see, he is smaller than a CCS Gunbuster. Of course, I've got his cape in the way. Let's go ahead and take this off here, just so we can see, because we just need his height there. So you can kind of see those standing side by side. So Gunbuster is taller than him. Also by the shoulders go up to about the top of the backpack. They're a little bit shy of it. CCS Gunbuster is bigger than Ultimate Dancouga. And then lastly, it's only fitting that I bring out the Metamorphosis Dancouga, just so you can see the difference in size for them. So he's definitely bigger than the Sentinel ones. The Sentinel ones do tend to be roughly around 8¼ to 8.5 inches. So I'm not surprised that he's smaller, but it's interesting seeing them side by side because you can still see the similarities between the two. Specifically in the shoulders are pretty much the same. The back piece here is the same, even though he's got a new breastplate there. This part is the same. There you still see the silver and the red here in the midsection there. So there's still enough Dancouga in this that you wouldn't be totally lost. And then also with the backpack, it looks like this version is an updated version of the movie version for Dancouga. That was in God Bless the Machine Dancouga. And so it is the star version there, if you look at the backpack. So you can see how that is pretty much an upgraded form of that. So I think that that is pretty cool to have them side by side. But I do like them both. At first, I wasn't so sure I was going to like Ultimate Dancouga because I was like, he doesn't look like Dancouga to me anymore. But seeing them side by side, you can definitely see the similarities between the two. So that's what you have for the Sentinel Dancouga. So that's what we have for size comparison. So as you can see, he is definitely a big boy, and he is, to me, probably the perfect height for shelf space. Yes, we've seen like the Blitzway, Mazen Kaiser, and even with the Good Smile Firebird, with those being well over 13, 14 inches. But 10 and a half, I think, is probably the perfect size, especially if you have DTOFs here in America. I don't know if they sell DTOFs around the world, but I know in America, at least they used to sell DTOFs, and that's kind of like the standard glass cabinets that everybody has for display pieces. And so I think that this does really, really well. So we've been through all of his accessories, we went through the light gimmicks, we went through all of that. So now we'll get into final thoughts. Now there's one last thing that I have to mention, and it's so wild to me that CCS would miss this detail with this stand that I feel that it's worth mentioning. This is the thing. We all know that generally speaking, CCS uses metal rods. Since they have so much diecast in their figures, you really do need a metal rod in order to kind of prop him up. Now the thing is, you only get one adapter, and what this does is this slides onto the bottom piece of Ultimate Dancouga, and it slides in there. They do that with all of the CCS versions. But there's something that I can't believe that they did. So let me bring out Ultimate Dancouga real quick, and I want to show you something. Now there's something that this Ultimate Dancouga can do, which most figures cannot. And I'm gonna move the stand, and I wanna show you this. I want you to see this. Do you see this flying pose for Ultimate Dancouga? Matter of fact, let me pull this back so you can kind of see the whole deal there. He has the perfect flying pose. I just kind of want to put it in frame so you can see how that looks. That is exactly how he looked in Super Robot Wars. And the fact that his neck can stick all the way up so you can get a proper flying pose, do you understand how rare that is to see? That is very, very rare, but there's no way to display him this way. The adapter that they use for the stand, you cannot have him propped like this. And I can't believe that CCS missed that. Like, if you're gonna have the flying pose in there like this, why not be able to display him this way? Because this is exactly how I would display him. But you can't do it because that adapter piece that they use for the stand, you can only prop them up. So let me show you what I mean here. So let me bring out this stand back out, and then I want you to see this. So let me bring out Ultimate Dancouga. And then what you have to do for this guy is you have to slide this into the middle section here. And I don't know even if you can see that, but you have to kind of slide this in, and it kind of goes, and you kind of slide it in that way. And it can be very difficult to do, especially with one hand, but you can do it. There we go. So it can slide in like that. So you've kind of got that metal rod sticking out, kind of like this. And then that goes into this hole here. But you can't angle this part. You can't angle this part at all. So if you could angle this part down somehow, now I understand that you have a metal rod here, so you probably could not do that. And even if you had something to where he was almost flat, now this part, let me pull this out. This part, because you have these notches here where you can kind of put them up higher or lower. This is the lowest notch that he'll go. But since you can't move this, you cannot get the proper flying pose. This is really just meant for him to be standing just like that. And I find that, I'm not gonna say that I'm disappointed, but I am gonna say, why have a proper flying pose? Let me lift that up there. So that's what he looks like in his flying pose while he's standing, right? But why have a proper flying pose where you give him all the articulation in the neck, and you can have it, you have the LED parts, you have everything perfect, but you can't display them that way. I don't understand. I don't understand. CCS was so close. Why would you drop the ball and not be able to do that? Now, maybe they couldn't find a way to have that adapter piece kind of move down. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe he's too heavy. I don't know. If you guys could figure out if I'm missing something as far as getting the proper flying pose, let me know. So, last thoughts on this guy. Wow. CCS, I am impressed. I did not expect this to be this good. I think that they did a really good job with the detail on this guy. The articulation, considering how thick and heavy he is, because he has a ton of die cast in him, they did a really good job on this. The only major issue that I have, and I wouldn't really even say that it's major, is the lights. That having a magnetic switch versus like some sort of button or something, it kind of works, but you have to kind of feel around for the part that you're supposed to hit in order to turn the lights on. That's my only issue with it. Now, they are set on a timer, so I think after like 30 seconds to a minute, they will automatically go off. So if you forget to turn them off, it's not really a big deal because they will go off. And I don't know if that's going to drain the batteries really quick, because on the other version that I had that had a magnetic button like that, those batteries drained really, really quick. So the only other issue that I have is the fact that with the stand that you don't get to have an adapter that'll allow you to do the flying pose on it. Now, maybe it's because it's too heavy, even though it seems like, especially with the metal rod and everything, that it should be able to take it, but maybe it is just too heavy to have that pose on here. And that's kind of disappointing. But the articulation is good. You get all the gimmicks, the claws, the Dancou Shinken. So you get the big version of the sword, the lighting effects, the detail is immaculate. What's not to like here? Like seriously, like what's not to like here? Now, what a lot of people don't really know is that Dancouga is actually one of my favorite super robots. I just like his whole aesthetic. He doesn't have the typical hero colors for a super robot. Usually it's red, white, blue, and yellow, kind of like the typical like Gundam colors and stuff. And I think that this looks amazing. And originally when I first saw the prototypes for this, I wasn't so sure because I was like, he doesn't really even look like Dancouga anymore. But now that I've kind of seen him next to the Sentinel Dancouga, he definitely still has the Dancouga aesthetic. So I think that that is really good on CCS, and also the fact that CCS got this one out before Good Smile, because I want to say that the Good Smile one was announced first or slightly first. It was close. They were pretty much at the same time, but I thought that there was only one, not two. So when I found out that CCS was doing it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna go for the CCS because I love CCS. I think that they are doing amazing work, especially for the price point. Now, the thing about this guy, the reason why he cost so much for me is because of tariffs and the fact that the box was super big. The box was super big, and so therefore it cost me over $110 just to ship him, and then you add the tariffs and all the other stuff, and then I almost ended up paying double in order to get this guy. So he, by the final price, I think was like $460. And in Japan, he's only $230, $240. So if you are someone who likes Dancouga or just likes super robots in general, I would definitely say pick this guy up. There's not much that he can't do, and considering his size, you are definitely getting your money's worth. Now, I don't know about paying double, Paying double, that's a totally different deal. But if you can get him without having to pay like the tariffs or the shipping fee, and you can get him for, let's say like $330, $350, I would say that he's still worth it. I think once you start getting to the $450 range, as far as your total price with all of the stuff added, then you're getting to where it may not be financially wise to do that. But out of 10, I'm gonna give this guy a 9.8. He is very, very good. I think the only thing that truly worries me is the lights. That's really the only thing. Other than that, he's almost perfect. So if you're someone who likes Dancouga or likes super robots, I would definitely pick this guy up. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you could like, comment, subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it. Send this out to all the super robot fans and all of the Dancouga fans. And I will be taking a little bit of a break, but when you guys do see me next time, I will have a surprise for you guys. So that's all I'm gonna say. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.